Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. We're at Churchill Downs in wonderful Kentucky for the 151st running of the Kentucky Derby. I'm Jay Croucher. He's Connor Rogers, fresh off back and biceps day.
That's right.
That's Matthew Berry, fresh off chicken tenders day.
I've been here for all 151 Kentucky Derbies, and I think this is going to be the best one yet.
Yes,
Wow.
indeed.
Yeah, of course.
Let me tell you, fellas,
From the horse's mouth.
The lights are bright.
Yeah.
Perhaps too bright, as they were for your man Austin Reeves last night, Matthew. That's why we are wearing
If
sunglasses.
you listen closely, you can hear him clank a few more.
Yeah, indeed.
You can just, but congratulations on Dyson Daniels. There
Thank
you go.
Yes.
It was great you pivited immediately to we could trade him for Giannis.
Yeah,
That was
we
the
are.
first Lakers take of the day.
Yeah, we're trading for Giannis. I don't know how they're going to do it, but like, the NBA,
Reeves was in the package that you brought up.
NBA needs the Lakers to be good and interesting. Giannis makes a lot of sense over there.
Sure.
LeBron's 41. He's amazing. He's a miracle, but you know.
Indeed.
Anyway, forget about NBA. That's coming to NBC soon, but the Kentucky Derby is coming this Saturday, and Fantasy Football Happy Hour is here because the draft happened last week.
Absolutely. So we're going to get all through Love-Hate, extended edition, post-draft. We're going to welcome on Drew Dinsick, our good friend the Whale Capper, later in the show to talk about his favorite bets for the Kentucky Derby. What are you looking forward to this weekend, Connor?
I just love the scene, right? And I love that this event, it feels like it's one of the true events that the underdogs, anyone can come out on top. That's what's beauty about the Kentucky Derby. And Drew's going to set the field really well for us. But just from the breakfast we had with him this morning, it sounds like it's a wide open field more so than ever. So excited to tap into that.
He's fired up. Drew loves the pony, so looking
He
forward
really
to getting
does. Yeah. His energy
feedback.
down here is infectious.
Indeed. So we take a look at the morning line odds with journalism, the 3-1 favorite, Sovereignty, the second favorite at 5-1. We'll get Drew's thoughts and analysis on all of these horses.
Oh, actually last night at the bar I met somebody with Team Sandman. I met somebody else from the Tiztastic team. So I'm going to throw a couple bucks on those just for good karma because they were both very nice gentlemen. And look there at 30-1 Render Judgment. Probably not a great shot, but I found this out. That horse is Toby Keith's horse. The late, great Toby Keith. I'm a big Toby Keith fan. So his widow and his family are here with Render Judgment. So rooting for Render Judgment just because love me some Toby Keith.
Indeed. And no chalkboard today, but just an imaginary chalkboard. And we drink free. We drink free, as we did last night on the Woodford Reserves.
we had a few last night. Connor didn't show up.
No,
but Connor was in bed. But
gladly.
But me and Jay,
Yes.
my beautiful wife Beth, and producer Damien,
and Mr.
Drew,
Dinsick.
and
Yeah.
Mr. Dinsick,
Yep.
and my beautiful friend Drew Dinsick. The five of us put a few back last night.
Indeed. So we drink free. Dyson Daniels, most improved player. The pride of Bendigo, Victoria, he also drinks free. Let's get to quarterback.
Austin Reeves pays top dollar.
Austin Reeves pays.
Poor Austin Reeves.
Top shop. All right, let's get to love-hate. Start off with the quarterbacks. And Matthew, I think.
And we should, just to reset, love
You
hate.
want to explain it?
Yeah, but hang on.
It's year 98.
We're
of
doing
love
it
hate.
before you.
It's
Good
a
time to go
different
through it again.
love-hate than normal, though, boys. It is love-hate here is just about the NFL draft. Players whose fantasy stock improved as a result of what happened during the NFL draft, they are loves. Players whose fantasy stock went down as a result of the NFL draft, they are hates. These are not generally love-hates for the season. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I just want to, I think that's an important clarification.
Yes.
Jay.
No, well clarified.
You give our audience too much credit.
Yeah.
I do not.
A-plus clarification and A-plus draft for
Yes, sir.
Kaleb Williams in terms of adding weapons. The Bears, they select Colston Loveland, 10th overall. Luther Burden III, 39th overall, after really fortifying the offensive line in free agency. And Kaleb Williams, he headlines the love list now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it, right? I mean, so it's not only adding Burden and Loveland, who you've already heard Ben Johnson talk about how much anticipation he has. We saw what Laporta did in his rookie year with the Lions, and Ben Johnson calling the plays. But you mentioned not only did they draft the two tackles, but Joe Thuney, Jonah Jackson. That might be the best offensive line in football. It's certainly the most improved.
Right.
I think you can certainly argue it is the most improved from last year to this year. And what is Kaleb? One of the issues, we saw some brilliance from Kaleb Williams last year, but I think one of the challenges was held onto the ball a little bit too long. He's so good off schedule, but held on the ball a little bit too long. But you give him a little bit more time to throw to DJ Moore, to Rome Odunze, to now Colston Loveland, to Luther Burden, to Cole Kmet, to a couple of running backs out of the backfield. I think Caleb Williams is somebody who saw his fantasy stock rise the most at the quarterback position out of the NFL draft.
Yeah, go ahead, Jay.
Did you change your evaluation of him as a player a great deal off of what he showed last season?
With Caleb?
Yeah.
Well, I think when you look at it, he just needed some structure in the offense. He needs to adapt to the structure, too. That's my biggest problem with him, is that even when you go back to college, he's a guy that likes to play backyard football a lot because he's just so talented at it. But Ben Johnson's a great hire because Ben Johnson's excellent at establishing a play-action structure, get 12 personnel going, which is why they take Colston Loveland to add to that tight end room. And these two guys, to me, help me kind of mitigate some of his issues, right, in different ways. Loveland, in my opinion, is excellent at working with his quarterback when the play breaks down. So those moments when he does hold the ball is a moment where Loveland is the guy that's that big body target, good catch radius, excellent hands. On the flip side of it, Luther Burden's the guy that you throw the quick game to because he's so good after the catch. So naturally, by scheme, get the ball out of Caleb Williams' hands to a guy. And they got one in DJ Moore, but Luther Burden can do that as well. Now it's kind of difficult to divvy up where you're garnering the attention to. Burden is so good after the catch. So the balance, a quick game, but also a big target in Loveland for when the play breaks down is going to make the best version of Williams in year 2.
Yep. It's kind of crazy, Connor, that Baker Mayfield is now this incredibly high floor quarterback, given that he literally played for the Rams a couple of years ago, and now after
and the Panthers in the same season.
And the Panthers, he's given up on by multiple teams. The Browns obviously moving on as well, but passing touchdown leaders since the 2023 season, Baker Mayfield, first overall with 69 passing touchdowns ahead of Jared Goff, Lamar Jackson, and Joe Burrow. What do you think, how will his stock change, Connor, based off of, obviously Liam Cohen moves on, but they add Emeka Egbuka in the draft?
It raises the floor is the most important point. When you look at Baker Mayfield, he's a guy that thrives based on situation, which is okay. You should want better talent around you. Obviously, the problem we have with older wide receivers, as great as they are, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, is that older wide receivers often get hurt. What Mike Evans has been able to do at his age, and he's banged up throughout the week, but is unbelievable. Emeka Egbuka and even Jaylen McMillan there in year 2 now raises the floor. It makes this wide receiver room injury-proof, that if you lose one of those veterans, you have people that can adequately step into the role, and that's going to help Baker Mayfield's floor and ceiling as well. So Baker Mayfield, I think, is one of the guys in fantasy drafts that when you take him, you just feel so confident in what you're getting, where there's a lot more variance with other guys like Caleb Williams.
Yeah, the other thing about this is, so we obviously know Liam Cohen now in Jacksonville, but Josh Grizzard's going to be the new offense coordinator. He was the passing game coordinator. That's going to be a similar playbook here. And you think about how good Baker Mayfield was. Chris Godwin and Mike Evans missed, I believe, 13 games combined last season. Like, he was thrown to the Sterling Shepherds of the world, and Jalen McMillan had to get good and quick.
Cade Otton, wide receiver too.
Cade Otton, exactly. But you think about now the emergence of Cade Otton, Mike Evans back healthy. Godwin hopefully is there for week 1, but if not, Egbuka there, gives them some protection there. The emergence of McMillan. You mentioned Cade Otton. Bucky Irving has been great out of the backfield. And Baker is running a little bit more as well. Last year we saw it just gets you 20 yards a game with his legs, which helps out. It's crazy, but since the start of 2023, he's the 6th best quarterback in fantasy on a points per game basis. And so adding a pro-ready wide receiver like Egbuka, I think continues. He's somebody that makes the love list out of the NFL draft.
And he feels like one of those guys that you don't get as many spike weeks, right? Where it's like, man, like I had 7 points from Baker Mayfield this week, but hopefully I get 32 the next week. Once again, he's a floor quarterback, and depending on how you're building your roster, that could be a really, really big advantage.
Connor, to your point, just to give you a stat to literally say exactly that, 65% of his games since the start of the 2023 season, he's had at least 18 fantasy points. So just an incredibly high floor. Again, even though Chris Godwin was gone from more than the second half of the year. Evans missed 4 games, and he was banged up in a couple others. And so, it's really impressive, and it's awesome to see. We've interviewed Baker on this show, friend of the podcast, Baker Mayfield. Easy guy to root for.
Yep.
Just a great guy.
Absolutely. Also, a low-key thing with Baker is that with the nature of that Tampa Bay defense, it's kind of a perfect setup for fantasy where they have a great run defense perennially, which helps in terms of clock not being burned, but their pass defense has been terrible and gets burned, so they're in these shootouts where teams are scoring quickly, and then Baker's getting the ball back and getting a ton of volume. Let's take a look at others receiving votes, headlined by Connor's new quarterback, Justin Fields, Justin Herbert, also Drake May with the Patriots loading up, Bryce Young continuing his renaissance. CJ Stroud with a couple new weapons. And then Tyler Shough as well, who it could be a starting quarterback. Who jumps out to you here, Matthew?
Well, listen, I think Justin Herbert, who, as we talked about, sort of over the second half of last year, started to throw more. Adding Trey Harris, adding Lambert Smith and Gadsden as well. I think he's really interesting. Drake Maye very quietly had a decent fantasy year last year, and then adding Trevion Henderson, Kyle Williams, 2 offensive linemen. That's in their first 4 picks. Obviously signing Steph Diggs this offseason as well. Hopefully he's fully healthy, but I think Drake Maye is a winner there. And I'll say Bryce Young. Again, they're continuing to build in Carolina around him, going out and getting T-Mac, our buddy T-Mac there. Connor, your thoughts on Fields and what the Jets did this year?
Fields' best asset in fantasy is obviously what he does with his legs. Now they have a complete offensive line after taking Armand Membu 7th overall, and the second round pick was Mason Taylor, a jack-of-all-trades tight end. So the blocking is just going to be so much better for the Jets, and they are going to run Fields. Like, they are going to scheme runs for Fields. They are going to tell him, hey, sometimes after your first read, giddy up and go. Fields, the most important thing we always say about him in fantasy is he's starting. He's going to start with the Jets. He's going to run a lot. That's why the arrow points up in this spot.
And by the way, and they improve the offensive line. They go out and get Mason Taylor, who we like a lot at tight end. They added some weapons for Fields,
right.
Fields as well. And listen, obviously Cam Ward's going to start day 1 for the Tennessee Titans. But when you look at the quarterback room in New Orleans, Tyler Shough has a real chance to see meaningful action this year and is possibly their day 1 starter.
Yeah, I mean, there's a really good chance. With Derek Carr, we just can't figure out what's – and think of all the injuries Derek Carr had last year, where if he comes into the season healthy, Tyler Shough, it's going to be his time eventually, like sooner rather than later. So we'll see what the status is with all the health questions around their wide receivers, but the offensive line is going to be a lot better with Kelvin Banks after taking Taliza Fuonga the first round the previous year. So there's worse situations that a rookie quarterback can walk into.
And we've certainly seen Kellen Moore offenses have a lot of fantasy success, whether it was Philadelphia, whether it was Dallas. The Chargers situation was a little weird, but for the most part, Kellen Moore offenses have produced fantasy goodness.
Indeed. Okay, well, one of those offenses was in Dallas once upon a time, and Dak Prescott headlines QB hate. Dallas didn't really add anything, Matthew, to help out Dak. The offensive line has lost pieces and is much younger, and the Cowboys just seem to be on the treadmill of mediocrity a bit at the moment.
As a Commanders fan, I love it. I love it when Jerry says we're all in and then they don't do anything for 2 straight years. But yeah, fantasy-wise, I feel bad for Dak, right? No wide receiver tight end drafted. Here's the wide receiver depth chart behind CeeDee Lamb. Jalen Tolbert, Kevontae Turpin, Jonathan Mingo.
The big acquisition last year, Jonathan Mingo.
Jonathan Mingo. 2021, that was the last time the Cowboys had a wide receiver not named CeeDee Lamb reach 700 yards. You think 700 yards in today's NFL is not tough to get to, and yet literally the only wide receiver since 2021 that's had at least 700 yards for the Cowboys is CeeDee Lamb. Amari Cooper did it in 2021. That's the last non-Lamb wide receiver to do it for the Cowboys. It's shocking to me. And then you thought, well, maybe because they were rumored to be they were rumored to be in the mix for Jeanty. Obviously, he goes before they picked, but could they have picked Hampton? We thought maybe they would add some offensive weapon.
Receiver at 12 was in play. Matthew Golden, T-Mac went before them, which maybe changed their plans. But look at the first 3 picks. They're telling you what they want to do, which in fantasy for us is red flag. Guard, okay, we want to run the ball. Defense. Pass rusher and Donovan Ezeraku, Savone Revel, the corner from ECU, who's a hell of a player. And I think the Dallas defense is going to be very good this year. But they're telling you what they want to be in that division. We want to run the ball and play defense.
So a month to go in the 2023 season, Dak Prescott was the favorite to win MVP, and he ended up finishing second in MVP. He largely has the same weapons now that he did that year. He put up a monster fantasy season as well with a ton of passing volume. Do you think the offense is just too different, the O-line is worse, and just everything is kind of cratered, or can he get back to being that player?
There's a lot different. I think he could be viable, but the MVP-level games, I don't think the defense will be bad enough to be put – Matthew, you always say this. Dak doesn't run anymore. Okay,
Correct.
So let's take that out of the equation, which is a very important factor. So then what does he have to be doing? He has to be playing in shootouts. Yeah. They're building a defense that doesn't want to play in shootouts, which is good for them in the real NFL aspect of this, not good in fantasy.
And I would also argue, Jay, when you think back to that year, their division is much tougher now than it was 3 years ago. Obviously, the Eagles are absolutely loaded. My Commanders have made a lot of strong improvements. And listen, for all the Giants' issues, that defense is going to be very solid this year.
Very good.
The Giants, they've got 3 tough outs twice a year just in that division that they didn't have necessarily maybe 3 years ago when Dak was in that MVP conversation.
Yep. Okay, let's jump to the hottest topic of the month, Shedeur Sanders, and we heard Andrew Berry.
I'm not familiar.
Well,
fill me in.
We're going to learn about him.
Tell me more about this kid.
Andrew Berry spoke on the Browns drafting Shedeur.
We felt good with him as a person. He works hard. He's a really good kid. He wants to be great. His teammates, loved him in Colorado, and I know he'll come in here ready to work, ready to try and put his best foot forward in all areas of competition.
Okay, what's interesting about that quote? Not one does he mention anything about his playing ability. It's all about his attitude, and that his teammates.
Like they had to answer for the concerns around it.
All about his teammates loving him. All of his teammates who played for his father. Here's the thing. I got no idea on Shedeur Sanders, but we've talked about this. Certainly, no one lost more fantasy value than Shedeur Sanders, who a week before the draft, people were talking about, like, this guy might be the starting quarterback of the Giants, right? And obviously, they go out and get Jackson Dart instead. And now he's, I would argue, 4th, maybe 5th. It depends on Watson, I suppose, what do we want to do with Watson. But put him aside, he's 4th on the depth chart in Cleveland. Like, you know what I mean? And you look at the rest of that depth chart. Comeback player of the year, Joe Flacco. Kenny Pickett.
Two-time coach of the year. Kevin Stefanski runs this team, by the way.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that he's a coach of the year, but he's a 2-time coach of the year. And then you think about Dylan Gabriel, who they drafted 50 picks higher.
That's the problem.
So who do you think is more likely to see time for the Browns, Sanders or Gabriel?
Well, based on talent, Shedeur Sanders, but that's not how the NFL always works. If you take a guy in the 3rd round, theoretically, he's getting more reps than the guy who took in the 5th round. Yeah. Where are all the reps for these guys?
Yeah, why take Gabriel in the 3rd and then take Sanders in the 5th? Do you think they just didn't expect Sanders to be there in the 5th, and they're like, all right, you can never have too many quarterbacks?
There's 2 reasons. That's number 1. Number 2, the owner came over the top and said, take Shedeur Sanders. And this is an owner that, when it comes to quarterback, comes over the top. So now if you're the front office, you want to prove your process right. And the coach is obviously, it's Kevin Stefanski. He's involved with the quarterbacks they take. You would think, theoretically, they're going to give Dylan Gabriel an upper hand out of the gate because of where they drafted him. I think Shedeur is more talented. I think this is a disastrous quarterback situation all around.
Well, the other problem, too, is that even if Sanders does get time and start, he's behind a suspect offensive line that has been good in the past, but has been very banged up and is getting older, and then not a great deal of weapons.
They traded out of drafting Travis Hunter, which is one thing that would have made you feel really good about this situation.
Yeah, by the way, last year the Browns 28th in quarterback fantasy points. Like, it's not a high-powered offense, and you think about what Stefanski likes to do. I mean, it's a little similar to Dallas. Like, they want to run the ball and play good defense. Like, that's what the Browns – I mean, I know under Flacco they were, like, flying high and, kind of crazy, and Jameis had some insane games last year. But I think that so they had to do what they had to sort of do last year, and they just – but, like, they obviously didn't want any more of the Jameis experience. They didn't bring him back, right? And so I think they're going to want to – you look at what they did do, drafting Judkins, drafting Dylan Sampson, like, they're going to want to run the ball, I think. And so even if Shedeur Sanders is the starting quarterback for the Browns at one point this year, I don't know that you feel great about his fantasy prospects. So just in terms of draft capital and the team that he lands in and the situation and competition, his fantasy value obviously took a big hit on draft day.
Indeed. Okay, let's jump to the running back.
Look at these hats. Those are I don't know if you're watching.
Will you be hatted up this weekend?
My wife has suggested I get hatted up. You know what I mean?
I think it's time.
I've thought about it. Yeah, I need to look for a hat. Listen, I mean, there's not much to cover up, with what's going on with me. But
all the more reason.
My wife will have my wife is currently hat shopping, to be honest with you.
Well, one man who doesn't need a hat to look beautiful is Ashton Jeanty, who headlined at number 1 the Dynasty Rookie Superflex rankings from Matthew. I think Ashton Jeanty probably would have been a love almost wherever he went, but particularly in Vegas, a really good landing spot.
We've talked about him a lot. We're going to continue to talk about him a lot, but he's a top 4 running back for me. He's a first-round pick overall. It's a great situation in Las Vegas where he doesn't have any competition for carries, and he gets an offense coordinator in Chip Kelly who likes to run the ball. Talked about this a lot. Chip Kelly's been in the NFL. There's 4 different years where he was calling plays in the NFL. His teams were top 10 in rushing attempts 3 of those 4 years as well. In fact, during his 3 seasons as the Eagles head coach, Chip Kelly's backfield were 4th in fantasy points per game, his running back. So it's just, they're going to use him, and they're going to use him a lot. And the passing game under Geno and the other guy, and, Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers, et cetera, is going to be competent enough that they're not going to be able to load the box for Jeanty.
Indeed.
I mean, Chip Kelly just had 2 running backs from his college program go in the 2nd round of this draft. Like, the guy understands how to use this position in Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson. And when you look at Ashton Jeanty, it wouldn't even really matter who the coach is because he's just that good. But this is a nice beneficial ad for him that he has Chip Kelly there. And once again, we loved this draft offensively. Geno could throw the ball down the field. That kind of stresses the heels of the defense, which is going to lighten the load a little bit for Jeanty in terms of the stack boxes he's seeing. I mean, what a dream for a rookie running back. Jeanty, there's a world where Genty's a top 3 running back in the NFL as a rookie, and it might be better than 3.
If we are sitting here a year from now, next year, at the 152nd running of the Kentucky Derby, and we're talking about Ashton Jeanty, #1 running back in fantasy, that is well within the range of outcomes here. Easily.
We'll get to some Ashton Jeanty season-long props from DraftKings later in the segment, but let's jump to Omarion Hampton, and we heard from Jim Harbaugh talking about the Hampton-Najee Harris dynamic.
I look at Najee and Omarion, both starters. I mean, it's like a third wide receiver. Yeah. It's like a nickel back. To have those 2 really great players running the football and protecting it in the backfield and being able to catch passes out of the backfield. I mean, I think they're both outstanding.
Yeah,
So,
go ahead.
I was just saying, Matthew, why is Omarion Hampton a love when we have the presence of my man, the great Najee Harris?
I think you just answered your own question. Look, Omarion Hampton is like a massive human being. Like, have you seen him? Like, there's a picture of him and Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh is like 6'4". Like, people forget Jim Harbaugh was a former NFL quarterback. Jim Harbaugh is tall, and there's a picture of him shaking hands with Hampton, and Harbaugh looks like itty-bitty.
Did I tell you the high school story with him?
No, what's that?
So in high school, his original weight room, basically the bar they were using started to bend because he had so much weight on the bar that they had to, like, limit how much he could lift. So they started basically calling him, like, Baby Saquon.
Yeah.
And here we are many, many years later of Omarion Hampton now is in the NFL, looking still bigger than everybody around him for a running back.
Massive. This is an offense that wants to run the ball. Last year, Chargers under Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh, top 12 in both running back carries and running back rushing touchdowns. And so Najee Harris is fine. But to use this kind of draft capital on Omarion Hampton, like, Hampton's going to be the lead running back. Harris will still have a role here, but it's a 1-year deal for Harris as well. So I think you will see Hampton take this backfield over the second half of the year. And so just given that offense, again, we talked about this with Herbert, like, you suddenly think about, like, they've got McConkey, they've got Trey Harris now, suddenly just what we talked about with Jeanty as well. Like, just you're not going to be able to load the box against the Chargers run game here.
Yep, a very solid offensive line as well when they're not going up against Will Anderson and co. in the wild card round. But Omarion Hampton, Connor, I think, there's not too much to say. He's just he has a very high floor and a very high ceiling.
In a year in which Ashton Jeanty didn't exist, Hampton's the #1 running back, and it's not close.
In a lot of classes. That's the thing. In a lot of classes, he's the #1 running back. The only thing that might annoy you a little bit in fantasy this year is if Najee starts to get some goal line equity. Yep. That's the only thing that can annoy you. But if people are concerned about Najee Harris, buy value on Hampton. He's going to be the lead back. He's built for as a workhorse back, and this is an offense that you feel good about whoever's getting the lead touches.
By the way, my man Najee Harris, also a gigantic human being, being up close on the field in Pittsburgh, getting a look at him. I still believe in you, Najee, even if Matthew doesn't.
Jim Harbaugh has a type at running back.
Yeah, indeed.
He does.
Quinshon Judkins is a type for everyone. Connor, what is the scope for him to be a true 3-down workhorse back right out of the get-go?
I mean, if you want confidence in my answer, he's my favorite bet at plus 1,800 to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. This is a battering ram downhill. He's good in the pass game. They just didn't need him to be at Ohio State because of Travion Henderson's presence, but you watched him at Ole Miss. He was phenomenal. Lane Kiffin used to play him out wide in the slot. And this is a heavy outside zone scheme where Judkins has that short area burst to get outside, stick his foot in the ground, and then run through a defensive back's face at the second and third level of the field. So I love Quinshon Judkins. He was my RB3 in this draft. I think in a non-Ashton Jeanty world, we would have heard some fringe round 1 buzz for Judkins, but this was a loaded running back class, and he fell victim to that a little bit awesome landing spot.
Yeah, I mean, look, the easy comparison here is we see more Hampton, more scenes from the Kentucky Derby, people coming in for Thurby. Today is called Thurby. It's a big day with the locals here in Louisville. But the thing with Judkins is that he's the Nick Chubb role, right? That's sort of the easy comp, but just because it's easy doesn't mean it's untrue. That's what they wanted to be, is Nick Chubb. And you think about Nick Chubb, the 4 years he was a starter, he averaged at least 17 touches a game. He was top 12. He was a top 12 running back in points per game each of those 4 seasons. Kevin Stefanski has always had a strong run game, and so I think, especially when you think about that quarterback room, if you're Kevin Stefanski, I'm like, I need to take as much pressure off of whoever is my quarterback as possible. Judkins going to get the ball early and often in a decent offense.
Yep. Another good situation, Matthews, for R.J. Harvey. The Broncos have been one of the best collective running back fantasy producing teams under Sean Payton, just without the singular talent. But R.J. Harvey has scope to come in there and immediately be the #1 guy.
Right, and it's all about Sean Payton, right? You see this tweet here on your screen. Sean Payton has drafted 4 running backs before day 3 as a head coach. Really, only 4 running backs. Reggie Bush, Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara, and now R.J. Harvey. When you think about how Bush, Ingram, and Kamara were used on the Saints under Sean Payton, think about R.J. Harvey. Just an awesome landing spot where he's got Jaleel McLaughlin, Tyler Beatty, and your guy Audric Estime, Connor.
We still believe.
We still believe, but honestly, not a ton of competition.
No.
You couldn't have asked for a better landing spot for R.J. Harvey. I've heard people comp him to Bucky Irving. Do you think that's a fair comp?
Well, what they could do in space is just phenomenal. Their ability to always make the first guy miss is how he's going to kind of make his own in the NFL level. And then you just look at the landing spot. Like you said, this is the best possible landing spot for him. Another guy, plus 3,500 to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think it's intriguing at least because Sean Payton, this is his guy. They at times wanted to get Audric Estime going last year, and he just never ran away with it. He never took advantage of it. There was some fumbles at times, some injuries at times. I think Harvey has a chance, even for a smaller back, to be a lead back in this offense. And that was the argument against Bucky last year that I even fell victim. I was like, a little small, not overly athletic. None of it mattered. When it was Bucky's time, the Bucs gave him the touches he needed.
Since Payton has taken over as the head coach in 2023 of the Denver Broncos, they are top 10 in running back fantasy points. And you think about that was with Javonte Williams and Jaleel McLaughlin. And it hasn't been like a bunch of guys there where you're like, oh, well, obviously. So, Sean Payton, when he gets somebody he likes, as you've seen with Ingram or Bush or Kamara, he's going to ride that running back and produce a lot of fantasy points. Unbelievable landing spot. I think he's a top 20 running back this year.
Yep. I think that stat that you mentioned about Denver being top 10 in fantasy points collectively in the running back room under Sean Payton, that speaks to how underrated the Denver offensive line is. Yes. They've been one of the best at creating yards before contact. They just haven't had the talent to really create that yards after contact.
Which is this guy to a T. Breakaway speed, make you miss. The problem with Harvey is you need to get him to the second level. There was too many runs, in my opinion, at UCF where he didn't like how it was blocked up, and he's like, I'm going to try to bounce this outside. And against the level of competition, most of the time he won the foot race. So the NFL, that's not going to work. This limits those issues in the offense he's in because they're going to spring him to the second level, and then the rest is his. Daylight is his. So once again, cannot emphasize this enough. Like you guys said, amazing landing spot for R.J. Harvey.
Yep. Also a good landing spot for Kaleb Johnson, who has the potential to be the lead back in Arthur Smith's offense. And we heard from Mike Tomlin talking about Kaleb Johnson.
This is a high-volume, capable runner who was the center of his offense. A lot of NFL or Sunday-like runs, if you will, meaning he did it from the home position or the pistol position into a lot of loaded boxes. There wasn't a lot of guesswork or Saturday-like holes on his tape, and that made the evaluation a fun one and the projection an easy one.
Kaleb Johnson has been training with Aaron Rodgers. Put the pieces together. It's like trying to find the Zodiac Killer. What does this mean? Does he,
I'm just excited the lights are on. That Aaron Rodgers is not in a darkness retreat.
Yeah. No, can't see any Ayahuasca as proactive in the gym.
The expectation, obviously, especially given the fact that the Steelers didn't invest a lot of draft capital in a quarterback, is that Rodgers does join the Steelers. This is another clue that maybe they will. But either way, look, Arthur Smith offenses. Arthur Smith runs the ball. Not only was Bijan, still don't understand the Tyler Algier, Cordell Patterson stuff in Atlanta. But regardless, Arthur Smith offenses, each of the past 3 seasons have totaled 500 or more running back touches per year. 500. So your man Najee vacates 299 touches. Steelers 5th in running back carries last season. So Kaleb Johnson, I think, schematically feels like a great fit for that Najee role. It's kind of easy analysis, but again, I think it's true.
But it's true analysis. So I think when you look at Kaleb Johnson, his best gift was his patience and his vision in outside zone. Arthur Smith is a believer and proponent of zone running scheme. That's what they do in Pittsburgh. That's what they do wherever Arthur Smith goes. So this was a scheme fit, and then this is a volume fit where Jaylen Warren, like at some point we got to ask, because this is a small running back that's hurt all the time now, right? And hopefully it's a bounce-back season for Jaylen Warren, but coming into the season he was hurt. There was some ups and downs where I don't really worry about the guys behind him, and he said it. Tomlin said it. Kaleb Johnson's built for this workhorse role. At Iowa, he constantly ran against loaded boxes because it's Iowa.
Yeah.
Like, they know they're trying to run the ball, and he ran through arm tackles all the time. He plays closer to 225. I don't care about the 40 time in this instance at all. Caleb, if you're looking for volume, Kaleb Johnson is the rookie running back here with high-end volume.
Yep. God, it would be amazing if they just went into the season with Mason Rudolph as the starter.
Will Howard pushing him.
How do you feel if you're TJ Watt? Like, what is going on with my prime? And because they have a loaded defense still.
And maybe they sign whoever Cleveland gets rid of, because Cleveland's not going to the season with 4 quarterbacks.
Kenny Pickett, bring him
back. Let's go. A triumphant return.
Unbelievable. All right, let's jump to others receiving votes for running backs. Matthew, run us through these, headlined by Chase Brown, who's still largely unopposed in the Cincy backfield.
Yeah, I mean, they drafted Taj Brooks in the 6th round, but you're not really worried about that. So Chase Brown, there was some talk that maybe they might get him some real competition. So Brown remains an elite running back. This is a guy who had averaged basically 24 touches over the final 8 games last season. My guy, Brian Robinson, B-Rob, number 8 on the field, number 1 in your heart. The only running back Washington drafted was Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt in the 7th. I know he's a sleeper for you, Connor, and you like him, but still, at the moment, they improved their offensive line, obviously with Tunsil, and of course, drafting, why am I blanking on the name, Connor?
Josh Connerly.
Connerly. Connerly. But anyway, so they improved their offensive line, and Robinson didn't get a ton of competition. He's a winner. Isiah Pacheco, the only Kansas City running back that was drafted was Rashard Smith, who's going to be more of a 3rd down guy as well. And then we talked about this, Javonte Williams. I mean, again, Jaden Blue, we'll see, but honestly, like,
he's a pass
at the moment,
back.
At the moment, Javonte Williams is your starting running back for the Dallas Cowboys.
I'll throw one name to the list. Bashaw Tootin on Jacksonville. Sure. Get to know that name. I don't think ETN has much left in the tank right now. Tank Bigsby is a number 2 between the tackles runner. When they get in camp and see Tootin's speed, I think they're going to really like what they have in Jacksonville with him. But he's got to earn it, but he's a sleeper right now.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Let's jump to running back hate. I feel like this is bait, Matthew. You put Najee Harris.
Well, you fell into it.
Well,
I'm there.
Come on.
Unbelievable. Rhamondre Stevenson, who it feels like is on the hate list on a weekly basis at this point.
Well, look, Rhamondre Stevenson, we talked about this a little bit on Monday, but he is volume dependent. When he saw fewer than 15 touches last season, there were 6 games where he saw fewer than 15 touches. He averaged 5 fantasy points per game. Not a typo, 5 fantasy points per game. A lot of his value came from the passing game, which is now going to be taken over by Travion Henderson. So Stevenson obviously took a hit. Yes, your man Najee, we just talked about. All the reasons we liked Hampton is the reasons we're not crazy about Najee Harris. In games where he sees between 10 and 15 touches over the last 2 seasons, he's averaging 8 fantasy points per game. Career lows in fantasy points per touch and percentage of team rush attempts last season. And so with the draft capital of Hampton, he's taking a second place seat. Jaylen Warren we talked about as well here, Jay. Like, with Kaleb Johnson there, like we thought there was a chance Jaylen Warren might get there, and he's not gonna.
No. Yep. Hey, Liz, Connor, Tyrone Tracy, what did you think about his season last year, and what do you think the divide will be between him and Camp Scatterbo?
It was awesome, but it was also a situation where Tracy fell in a spot where it's like you're the guy because we don't really have a lot of other people, and I think he did a really good job with that besides some fumbles. The thing you worry about here is it puts Tracy in his real NFL role, which is a pass-catching, slashing, change-of-pace kind of runner where it's probably a 50-50 role. The thing with Scatterbo is, as much as we like him, and he'll take away touchdown equity in between the tackles running, he is also limited. He doesn't have speed. He's somebody that, I thought the pass protection needs some work in terms of technique, but he's got the strength. So you don't write off Tyrone Tracy, but what we loved about him is that he was on the field a lot and producing at a high level, and now that goes away.
Yep.
Yeah, there were only 2 times last season where Tyrone Tracy had a game where we had fewer than 19 touches,
right,
and he scored more than 12 fantasy points. he just, again, like most running backs, he needs volume, and he's probably not going to get it now with Scadabo in New York.
Yep. Okay. Let's look at Ashton Jeanty's season-long rushing props from DraftKings. The line is effectively set at 1,100. That's where it's minus 110. 1,200 plus rushing yards, plus 150. 1,300 plus 300. And then 1,400 plus is plus 550. I think, Connor, these bets, look, the number always looks low because just mentally you don't process the injury risk and the fact that on average a running back will miss median about 2 games per season. And so to me, these bets, it's largely about durability. And Jeanty's a weird one because obviously he had insane durability and workload at Boise State. Does that make you feel better or worse about his workload this year because he had an insane amount of tread on the tires but also was able to survive it?
I feel better about it because of his work ethic and the way he's built. He's low to the ground. He's got good balance. He's really smart. He doesn't get lined up for a ton of huge hits. So the way I would play this, number one, is 2 different ways. First off, I would probably take the 1,000 plus or the 1,100 plus at like a higher wage because I think he's going to get there because he's the only guy. Say he misses 3 games, he still gets there. He's that good. You feel like you're going to hit that, and then I would take the 1,400 plus because if he plays every game, I think he gets to this number. I think he's that good. I think it's Pete Carroll. They're going to run the ball. There's no one else in this backfield that scares you. So I play the absolute highest end, which is plus 550, and then I play something not at the lowest end, but maybe the middle tier that I'm confident he's going to get to.
I might just do this as a ladder bet and just like if you believe in Ashton Jeanty,
which you
I think we all do. I think I would just, bet each leg and just do it as a ladder bet.
Yep, and as we've mentioned, the hidden thing with Jeanty is just pace and the fact that they are going to run a ton of plays in that offense.
It's Pete Carroll.
Yep.
He's going to get a ton of touches out of the gate. Pete Carroll is not waiting and building to win. Pete Carroll saw this guy as probably the best player in the draft in his eyes, or one of, and said, I want to win now, and we're going to get our best player the ball.
Yep.
Right, and they're also, to your point, Chip Kelly always plays at a fast pace of play, so you're looking at more touches, and then you think about that division, right? You've got 3 other good offenses. So I think, especially when you think about they're in Las Vegas in the Dome on the turf, there's going to be some shootout potential there as well.
Okay, DraftKings Sportsbook is your home for live betting, and new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Just download the app and use the promo code BERRY when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook.
The crown is yours!
We're going to hit our first break. When we come back, more love-hate from Churchill Downs.
Maybe I'll get a crown. Maybe I'll wear a crown around Churchill Downs.
I don't know.
It's kind of a hat.
This Saturday, the ultimate all-day celebration begins. It's the Kentucky Derby, live at 2:30 p.m. Eastern on NBC and streaming on Peacock. Plus, prepare for the action at Churchill Downs this week with race previews, analysis, betting tips, features, and lifestyle.
Features and lifestyle.
At NBCSports.com/Kentucky Derby. Let's get to pass catcher loves.
That's why Matthew's here.
There
Features
we
and
go.
lifestyle.
I was going to say, with the features and lifestyle, there's a storm of brewing here at Thurby, and I'm very worried about Matthew's woolen one-piece. Looks like an IT CEO kind of operator.
I am also, a little bit.
Yeah. Speaking of IT CEOs, James Gladstone talks like one at press conferences, and he drafted Travis Hunter, who is one of the great unknowns, obviously. So we take a look at his stats by position. I believe he played about 180% of possible snaps, and he did it all over the field as a wide receiver, lining up in the slot, lining up outside. How do we approach Travis Hunter as a fantasy asset, given something of an uncertainty about how he's going to be deployed?
You approach him excitedly.
Okay.
Quickly, fast.
Yes.
Try to get him on your team because he's not going to last long in drafts. This is an unbelievable landing spot for Travis Hunter. We thought there was a chance he might go to Cleveland. We thought there was a chance that he might play defense, that the team that he gets drafted by would want him to be primarily a defensive player. And no, he's going to Liam Cohen and Jacksonville, where he is going to line up opposite Brian Thomas on what should be a very pass-happy offense. You think about Liam Cohen last year in Tampa Bay. The Buccaneers were 3rd in wide receiver fantasy points, and that was with Evans and Godwin, as I mentioned last segment, missing 13 games. And so Hunter going to a pass-first offense, a fantasy-friendly offense, with only BTJ as real target competition. All due respect to Brenton Strange and Parker Washington. It's going to be the BTJ and Travis Hunter show. And, Hunter is so good after the catch, they're going to manufacture touches for this kid. When you think about the draft capital of what Liam Cohen and James Gladstone did to go up and grab him, that's one thing that I think gets missing in fantasy analysis sometimes is the human element of it. Liam Cohen and James Gladstone are new to this team, and they pushed all the chips in the middle and say, we're going and getting this guy. And so what that means is they need Travis Hunter to work in the worst way.
It's the statement from a new regime. And when you make a statement as a new regime, you're going to do everything you can to make that work. So I think when you look at Travis Hunter on this team, it's going to be offense as the priority, which is what we care about in this situation. And I've said it before, if you just evaluated him as a wide receiver, or if he only played wide receiver at Colorado and was able to grow into that position, he'd be as good as a wide receiver prospect as we're accustomed to seeing typically, with the top guys. So I love this, and I'm with you, Matthew. There's value now. There won't be value for long. People are going to catch on. Travis Hunter is going to be awesome in that offense right away.
Yep. Connor Tetairoa McMillan, a.k.a. T-Mac, is your #1 wide receiver. What do you think of his landing spot and the fit with Bryce Young?
Well, #1, obviously the targets are going to be there. He's going to live on the perimeter. Bryce is accurate, right?
Yeah.
Bryce's problem is really under pressure. Obviously, there's been lack of size. You'd like to see him create more plays. But when comfortable, Bryce is very, very accurate. McMillan is somebody that plays in a phone booth, plays above the rim. He's going to eat all the targets in this offense. He should be seeing a ton of red zone looks, which we're absolutely going to love. And he's simply got the talent. So I like this landing spot for McMillan. There's no ramp up. There's no, hey, you're the #1. Like, you're the guy. And I know if people are looking at, Xavier Legette or any of the veterans there, it's McMillan's show. That's why you take him in the top 10. Bryce Young, throw it to him even when he's not open.
And quietly a better offense than I think I get credit for. Bryce Young played a lot better of the second half of last year as well. Carolina last year finished actually top 8 in wide receiver target share and wide receiver red zone targets last year. And now you get a big target in the red zone like T-Mac. This is somebody who I think is in the 18 to 24 range among wide receivers, low-end wide receiver 2, high-end flex. Really good landing spot for him in Carolina.
Yep, tough year, Matthew, for Calvin Ridley last season with some occasional highs but mostly lows, and now he gets Cam Ward as his new quarterback. And Cam Ward, what he did very well was throw the ball deep, which is where Calvin Ridley thrives.
4th most completions on passes of 20 or more air yards last season for Cam Ward, and no wide receiver had more deep targets in 2024 than Calvin Ridley. Then you think about the rest of that room who he's competing with for targets, right? I mean, like Tyler Lockett, Chigakonkwo,
and rookies.
Right, and rookies. Like,
no rookie taken in the first 3 rounds.
No, I mean, the kid they got, I know you're...
Chimray Dike they got early on day 3, but they took Elikayo Manor late, who I really like, but he's still a late pick.
He's still a late pick, exactly. And so even if there's somebody else that's there, like Calvin Ridley is going to be the alpha in an offense that's going to throw and have a much more improved passing offense this year as well. So he's one of the loves out of the draft.
Yep, Jerry Jeudy, Connor was...
And I feel like he's going to be a sleeper this year just because there's nothing sexy about Calvin Ridley.
No.
He's been around for a long time. Tennessee's a small market. You're just kind of be like, you know what I mean? Like there's going to be buzzy guys that people want.
Yeah, it'd be like Adam Thielen from a couple years ago. I was like,
right.
We're
going to look up and like Calvin Ridley in week 8 is going to be like a top 15 wide receiver throughout the first half of the season. Everyone's going to go, wait, what?
Cam Ward elevates pass catchers.
Yes.
I cannot say that enough. That's what all the guy has done throughout college. He will continue to do it in the NFL.
Yep. Jerry Jeudy finished 7th among wide receivers in targets last season. Connor, do you think that can continue given that there's not a great deal else?
If Joe Flacco's back there, then it absolutely can continue. Flacco's comfortable in this offense. Obviously.
Not his name.
Yeah, comeback player of the year, Joe Flacco. Let's not forget, by the way. But yeah, there's a comfort in this offense for him now. If it somehow is Kenny Pickett or Dylan Gabriel, I would actually feel more confident in Shedeur Sanders than both of those guys. Then my confidence would really go downhill. But if Joe Flacco is back there, Jeudy will be peppered with targets because that's what Joe Flacco does to the #1 wide receiver on each team he plays on.
145 targets last season, was 7th most among wide receivers. They did not draft a wide receiver. Yes, they've got Njoku there, but, other than Jerry...
Cedric Tillman.
We love Cedric Tillman here. Club said, we are big fans of Club said here, but honestly, Deontay Johnson is there, by the way. People might have missed that.
Yeah.
Deontay Johnson's there, but it is in a room where you feel like, there's other than maybe Njoku, there's no one that's really going to truly demand targets.
And Elijah Moore's gone now.
And Elijah Moore is gone as well. So I always, Jamari Thrash I have on a dynasty team, so you have flicker of hope there with Jamari Thrash and maybe Cedric Tillman. But Jerry Jeudy's going to be the offense, the alpha in an offense that, who knows who's throwing them the ball. But as we saw with Malik Neighbors last year, if you're getting that kind of volume, it sort of doesn't matter who's throwing you the ball.
Yep. You guys can't hurt me with the Joe Flacco stuff anymore because I stand tall on the shoulders of Dyson Daniels, the great barrier thief. Can't even see Joe Flacco from all the way up here.
All the money you're sitting on from last night. Yeah, I get it. Good for you.
Kaleb Williams, he's going to be able to see Colston Loveland, who clearly the Bears wanted with how they went, with how high they drafted him, Matthew.
When Ben Johnson was in Detroit, the Lions were 8th in tight end fantasy points, right? During those 3 years that Ben Johnson was calling the plays for the Lions, Detroit tight ends combined for 32 receiving touchdowns at second most, tied for second most in the NFL. And so having a top 10 draft capital, top 10 overall, Ben Johnson's first pick as a head coach in the NFL. Again, it's the same stuff we talked about with Travis Hunter. He wants Colston Loveland to work. This is somebody that he kind of put his stamp on. And so, and you think about Sam Laporta's rookie year under Ben Johnson, sky's the limit for Colston Loveland. I personally would have liked to see Tyler Warren there, Connor,
right, I know.
But it's going to be Colston Loveland.
Yeah, and they drafted Colston Loveland because they think his play style is more similar to Sam Laporta. So that's an easy comparison to draw, an easy fit for this offense, and there'll be plenty of targets for him right out of the gate.
Okay, let's jump through others receiving votes, which Connor is headlined by your man, Jack Bech.
Yeah, Jack Bech, I think he could be the best wide receiver on this team rather quickly. I'm really excited for this landing spot because, listen, of course Brock Bowers counts in the wide receiver targets because that's the style of tight end he plays. But after that, it feels pretty wide open, even with the moments from Jacoby Myers. Bech is so good at working the middle of the field. Gino will use Bech similarly how he used Jackson Smith and Jigba.
We talked about the landing spots of Trey Harris with the Chargers. How about Kyle Williams with the Patriots? Stephon Diggs is 31 and coming off of an ACL. The only wide receiver that's returning the Patriots that saw at least 70 targets last year was Pop Douglas. So it's an immediate opportunity there for Kyle Williams, who our colleague Chris Sims rated as the number 2 wide receiver in this class. Simsies absolutely loves Kyle Williams. How about Jalen Tolbert? Again, nothing exciting, but we talked about this. The Cowboys didn't draft anyone,
right.
So by default, Jalen Tolbert is the number 2 in Dallas. Pat Bryant lands in Denver. We saw a nice growth out of Bo Nix last year. Other than Cortland Sutton, there's no one that's really established in that wide receiver room. Sutton, by the way, final year of his deal. Marvin Mims, Devon Bailey, not big target earners. And finally, Mason Taylor there for the Jets we talked about. Could easily be the number 2 target for Justin Fields after Garrett Wilson.
Right, it's not just that whole start, it's that he's the number 2 target. So there'll be plenty to go around for Mason Taylor. And Justin Fields historically has his best success throwing to the tight end. That's a really good sign for the 20-year-old Mason Taylor.
Yep.
There's a chance Tyler Higbee and Colby Parkinson are not with the Rams after this year. So T-Ferg, Terrence Ferguson, good landing spot long-term for him in L.A.
Yep. Let's jump through the pass catcher hate list, Matthew, headlined by DJ Moore, who has got 50 other pass catchers to deal with on his team now.
That's the point, right? You add Loveland, you add Luther Burden, and you think about what they did with the offensive line. They're probably going to want to run more. Ben Johnson was much more balanced in Detroit, so he took a hit here. 61% of Moore's receiving yards came after the catch, but that's kind of what Luther Burden also does as well, so maybe he loses some. How about Chris Godwin and Jaylen McMillan? Just having the fact that Ibuka's there's another mouth to feed, and the drafting of Ibuka sort of lets you know, like, certainly McMillan's on the 4th on the depth chart now when they're all healthy, and you also think, like, does this mean Godwin may not be ready for the start of the season? So that was sort of then, and then quickly Jaden Reed, with drafting Matthew Golden, Reed didn't play all that much last year. It was final 11 games last season. He was wide receiver 61. He had only a 14% target share, and now they add a first-round draft pick in Matthew Golden. By the way, Savion Williams, who's their 3rd-round pick.
That's sneaky because Savion Williams is all manufactured touches.
Correct.
He was a wide receiver at TCU that played wildcat quarterback, running back. Where Jaden Reed, we like the scheme touches, so that scares me.
Because that's what some of the things that we're doing with Jaden Reed as well.
Okay, we're going to hit our last break. When we come back, the whale capper, Drew Dinsick, who is wearing
They're all waving to us. Hi.
A magnificent hat that'll blend in lovely with the Thurby crowd, and he will give us his best bets for the Kentucky Derby.
I feel like they just said, hey, just stand there awkwardly. All right, now wave. All right, stand there awkwardly again.
It's good direction.
Now wave. Now wave. All right, yes, you. With your left.
Last call here at Churchill Downs for the 151st running of the Kentucky Derby. The heavens have opened up. Matthew Berry requested an umbrella in the outbreak. He didn't get that, but we did get Drew Dinsick, the whale capper, to join us.
We did. Do you think this rain is God's tears because he has Tyler Warren on his dynasty team?
Okay.
I think so.
Could be. Drew, thanks for joining us. Love the hat. Let's get straight into
Drew.
it. Bob Baffert back after 3 years. Big story. Could one of his horses win?
Ooh, Bob Baffert, he had a bad draw in this one. He does have the 2-year-old champion in Citizen Bowl. Unfortunately, he's breaking out of the 1 hole. I do not think realistically Baffert has a chance to win the Derby. However, he's got the best horse in the Oaks for my money, and that is, of course, Tenma, the likely winner of the Oaks in my opinion.
I like that. Tenma. I'm writing that down.
Drew, how about Cole Battle, 20-1, but the bigger story here is the trainer. Lonnie Briley, Kentucky Derby debut, right?
Yeah, if you don't have any allegiance at all in this field and you want a feel-good story, it is Cole Battle, the 16. He's a relatively underdog of a horse, not expected to be here. He won the Rebel Stakes. Lonnie Briley, 72-year-old trainer. He's been in the business since 1991. This will be his first ever horse that runs in the Kentucky Derby, so excited to see him go.
Easy horse to root for here. Journalism is the chalk favorite at 3-1. You buying that at the price?
I think he's a worthy favorite. 3-1 is never going to be a price for me to bet in a horse race just because this is a 20-horse field. This is a very competitive field. This is going to be an incredible race. However, I will say the California group of horses that came through, which journalism roundly defeated, 3 graded stakes wins out in California. He is the horse to beat at 3-1. However, I'm going to take him on at that price.
Yeah, I will just tell you this. The last 2 years at the Kentucky Derby, my betting strategy has been very simple. I just follow Drew around.
Yep.
I just follow Drew around, and then when he bets, I bet, and I've made a lot of money. So thank you, Drew, and I hope everyone else follows along. American Promise. Let's go on Sunday. It's closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Go get yourself a mint julep. For Drew Dinsick, Connor Rogers, and Jay Croucher, I'm Matthew Berry. Enjoy the Kentucky Derby. Peace out. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotorWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.